everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is your girl Nwabi, and if you're new to my channel, please do not leave without subscribing and pressing that notification bell. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not new to my channel, thank you for coming back, and I hope you all enjoy today's video. It's another Beauty and the Binge where I talk about a TV show or a movie while doing a makeup look inspired by that TV show or movie. And I really hope you guys enjoy mine's Beauty and the Binge. It is June, it is Pride Month, and I have decided for the month of June and July, I am going to be doing LGBTQIA plus community related TV shows or LGBTQIA plus community related friendly shows. This is shows that have themes that are centered around the community or that are basically catered or have a majority cast of people who are in said community. I hope you guys enjoy this little segment of Beauty and the Binge for the month of June and July. Every second week when I upload, you will see what I am currently watching or what I have watched that has themes that are centered around the community. Today's Beauty and the Binge is a show called Pose. You can find this show on Netflix and it's a Fox TV show. It currently has 2 seasons on Netflix, but the 3rd season is already finished. It was the 3rd and final season. I don't know when they're going to be uploading it on Netflix. However, I thought I should talk about the show because this is a lovely show and it's a great show to open up my Pride segment for Beauty and the Binge. So let's get started. So we start off this series, Pose. I love it. First of all, love. Okay, we start the series off with being introduced to the House of Abundance, which is fabulosity at its best. We have the cast. One thing you need to know about this cast is it is one of the first TV shows with the cast that is majority transgendered people. So, majority of this cast, is it majority or the majority of the main cast and a lot of the supporting cast members are actually transgendered women and men, transgendered people, and that is absolutely fabulous in terms of diversity, inclusivity. The show did it and it did it well. Has a few iffy issues, but that's not what we focused on. So we start off by getting introduced to the House of Abundance, and there's different characters. We have Mother, who is Electra, who's the mother of the house, and then we get introduced to Blanca, I'm your mother, Evangelista child. We get introduced to Blanca, and we get introduced to Angel, and we get introduced to the rest of the cast. So was in the past a lot of people, especially gay people, trans people who had come out to their families, what would happen is they would get thrown out of their homes and they would get basically homeless. They would be homeless and they would go in New York and they would go to New York. And this is like in American culture, guys. So they would go to New York, and what would happen is people would have their chosen families. By chosen families, these are families that they basically came together as a community. These are people that you can be yourself with. So this is what a house is. And House of Abundance is the main character's current chosen family. So we get introduced to the House of Abundance, and whilst we're introduced to House of Abundance, we also get introduced to Ballroom Culture.
Royalty. The category is Bring It Like Royalty.
So Ballroom Culture, what used to happen was in New York in the late 80s, in New York, ballroom culture was introduced where people who were in minority communities, especially in terms of gay, trans, bisexual, people who were in the colorful or the rainbow flag family, they used to meet up, and it was basically a community where they were cast away from society because of who they were, and they used to meet up in private, and it used to be like underground balls where they used to meet in private, and they would be themselves, and there would be competitions where they would walk in categories. and it's just all fabulosity. And basically ballroom culture, a lot of ballroom culture is basically what shapes the culture of pop, what shapes the culture of dance. It's a lot of things that we popularize and things that we enjoy and things that we like are things that were started by people in the gay community or in the LGBTQ plus A community, guys. A lot of things that we enjoy were actually created by people who are in the community. And things like the words we use, like chow, like, even the language that we use, the slang that we use, a lot of things comes from gay culture. It's just that a lot of cis people take that, and it seems like people who are straight and cisgendered, they came up with it, whereas, well, they did not. Like, it's kind of like cultural appropriation, but on steroids, because they never get the credit. It's only recently where people in that culture get the credit. For example, Madonna's Vogue. Madonna's Vogue gave light to that culture, the voguing culture and the dancing. I have linked in the description videos that give an idea of what exactly ballroom culture is. So we get introduced to ballroom culture, and there's a ball and the House of Abundance with the royal ball, and it is shown what quality is. House of Abundance is quality. House of Abundance is goodness. But Blanca has an existential crisis that we're going to get an idea of. So what happens is that is basically the opening, and we get introduced to exactly what Pose is going to be about. Pose is a dramatized it's like a dramatized documentary on ballroom culture, and it basically shows us exactly what used to happen in that culture and how it came about. That was the opening sequence where we get introduced to house living and we get introduced to ballroom culture. Thereafter, we get introduced to Damon. Damon is a young gay black child. He is dancing and he is having a good time at a dancing lesson. And then what happens is he goes home. He gets caught dancing by his homophobic dad. And basically he gets thrown out. He gets thrown out of his home because he's gay and because he's dancing. Because he was forbidden. And basically, I think his parents were in denial because his dad goes on about how he told his mom that he's going to be a sissy for being gay. He's going to be a sissy and some crazy ass nonsense like that. So he gets kicked out of home, and that's basically how his story comes to pass. So this series is basically focused around Damon. At some point, it gets focused around Pray Tell, who is the announcer at the balls, and it focuses on Blanca. It focuses on a lot of people at the same time. So, Damon, he gets thrown out of home, and that is where he meets Blanca because he goes to New York. And he basically lives on a bench for a little while. And this is basically what used to happen to gay boys in the 80s. Oh yes, this series is based on New York in the 80s for people in the community. And that's basically what used to happen to young gay boys in the 80s. They would come out to their families as gay. They would get thrown out. And then in getting thrown out, they would have to live on the street. Most of the time, if they don't make it, most of the time they would go into prostitution, which is something that gets touched on in the series. And they would go into other means of making money and other means of surviving. Because if you need to have your next meal, you're gonna do what you have to do, bro, because you don't have money. So Damon's on the streets, and that's where he meets Blanca because he's dancing, because Damon is actually quite a good dancer and he really wants to go to an academy for dance, and that's how he meets Blanca. So Blanca is one of the main characters, and what happens is she is transgendered, and she also grew up in a house because she was kicked out of home when she came out as trans to her mom. So what had happened was Blanca's coming out, and she just got her HIV test results. And in the 80s, that was in the time where the HIV epidemic was quite big, especially considering that they did not know what the disease was. They did not know not what the virus was. They did not know what was going on. And most of the time, HIV and AIDS was basically blamed, and basically it was a gay virus. It wasn't a virus for sexually active people. It was a virus that was said to come from the gays, basically. So Blanca goes and gets a HIV test. She finds out that she's HIV positive, and in finding out that she's HIV positive, she basically has some sort of she has a epiphany. She has an epiphany that basically she wants to start her own house, and she wants to compete in balls. You know, at the time was HIV was not something that you could live very long with because ARVs weren't yet developed. So she was like thinking about, no, she needs to do something so that, you know, she can have a name in life, and she can be a legend in her own right, and not just be someone who was under Electra's wing and Electra's legendariness, you know? Because if you're house mother and you compete and you win, you basically become a legend. You basically become, know, the who's of the balls. So she decides that she's going to actually start her own house, and she goes looking for a place, because that's where she's gonna take her people, or her chosen family and her castaways, and that's where they're gonna stay, and they're gonna be a house, and they're gonna compete in balls, and so on and so forth. So she argues with Electra, obviously, because she tells Electra of her plans, and Electra is complicated. Electra is like a hardhead, and she comes for you, and she's like that person. She will drag you, she will read you, she will literally, she's feisty, but she's got a vulnerable side, and she doesn't like to show it. And you know, she's just Electra for me is kind of sometimes she annoys me, but she's kind of a good person as well. So she has an argument with Electra. She tells Electra she's leaving. She asks the rest of the house, is no one coming with her? Because basically she's going to be the new thing to Ballroom, you know? And she's not going to just be Electra's person who comes with ideas and not get any credit for the ideas. She's going to actually use her ideas for herself and for her house. So that's how she ends up meeting Damon. She meets Damon while on a walk, and she sees Damon dancing, and Damon is basically dancing for scraps of money. And in dancing, she takes Damon under her wing, and she basically goes and feeds Damon. Actually takes Damon to the ballroom to go watch a ballroom sort of competition. I don't remember what category it was, but she takes Damon for a ballroom competition, and then she also goes and feeds him, and basically tells him that if you want a home, if you want a chosen family, you can definitely find a home with me. You can join my house. I see you're a great dancer. And then Damon's like, I don't want to do that, like ballroom. I want to dance in like an academy, basically. He wants to be a professional dancer. And then Blanca basically gives him some motivation, and they get to know each other. And Damon ends up joining Blanca's house. On the other end of things, we have Angel, who I said most of the time these people who get kicked out of their homes, they sometimes fall into prostitution, and Angel is part of that. And she has this thing with this white guy who's into trans people but not openly, and so she is a prostitute, and part of her journey she has the fights, and she has some sort of part of her journey she wants to be treated like the woman that she is. And because she's always the secret, or she's always the undercover thing, she has some sort of internal battle with herself, and she doesn't feel womanly or whatever. But she has her own little problem, and she goes to the ball and she walks a category where she basically shouldn't have walked that category. But in that, Blanca's there, and Blanca's like, but what were you expecting, and why did you actually walk that category? Why don't you come join my house? And Angel joins Blanca's house, and in joining Blanca's house, they go on like discovery, basically teaching Damon exactly what ballroom culture is. And in teaching Damon what ballroom culture is, they also show Damon what voguing is, and they introduce voguing. Voguing was part of ballroom culture, and basically the gays came up with voguing, and it's a sort of dance style, and it's a sort of self-expression that is amazing and very complicated. And I will link a video that I watched to learning more about ballroom and voguing and the style of voguing. It's a TED talk by this guy who had some sort of his own journey in coming out and learning about voguing and so on and so forth. And then House of Evangelista, they go to a ball where they challenge House of Abundance in a Vogue challenge, and House of Evangelista basically lose that challenge. That was House of Abundance smoked them. They lose the challenge, but in losing the challenge, they get a lesson where Tuba, that's how you do it, and you dust yourself off. Because after that, Esteban, who is Papi, Esteban wants to join House of Evangelista, even though they just lost. Because Esteban says, I understand you guys lost and everything, but I can see that you guys are gonna go somewhere. Therefore, I want to join this house. And that is basically the main cast and how we introduced the main cast, and that's basically the story. And then Blanca, they take Damon to go do ilantuza yakhe, audition yakhe at the dance academy. One thing about Blanca, she has a set of rules: no drugs, you have to be in school, there must be something that you're doing, you must work, whatever, you must hustle, there must be something you're doing outside of the ballroom, and you can't just lounge around and stay at the house. So Damon didn't apply because he was basically doubting himself, and he was feeling very self-conscious about things, how he's not going to be accepted because he's gay and so on and so forth, and he's not going to try and join the dance academy. And Blanca wasn't having it, so he has his audition, and it's a very, very beautiful scene where he actually expresses himself in dancing. And I think that's when he opened up to himself. Damon opened up to himself and basically accepted himself for who he was. And that's the beginning of Pose. And we go through that journey. We learn a lot about the HIV/AIDS pandemic. There's a lot that's uncovered. There's a lot of scenes, and there's a lot of themes that are uncovered. It also tackles transphobia, and it tackles homophobia. It tackles a whole lot of things. It really tackles a lot of themes, especially in the culture of being transgendered, in the culture of being gay, understanding HIV and AIDS, understanding that you can still live your life even though you're HIV positive. It tackles a whole lot of those themes. Also tackles desirability politics in terms of how womanly you look, especially as a transgendered person. How if you're woman passing, it's you receive less hate. Yes, you receive less hate if you're woman passing than if you're a transgendered woman and you have very mask features. So it goes through those themes and goes through those politics and topics, because we even have a storyline where one of the transgender ladies, she actually goes to like backyard plastic surgery things to try and look a little bit curvy, to try and look a little bit more womanly, and it also tackles the how in at that time there were transgendered women who were being killed, and it wasn't something that had importance, how they're being killed. If like a person finds you attractive, a cis person finds you attractive, and then you guys like are going to hook up, and then they find out by no can't you transgendered, then they just kill you because now they feel some type of way for being attracted to a transgendered woman or future thing. So it really tackles a lot, and it has beautiful themes. It has really beautiful themes. I really think it is great TV. I think you should be watching it. In terms of the story, in terms of everything, how it's paced, I haven't watched season 3. Apparently that's really badly paced, but season 1 and season 2 are quite good in my opinion, and I give them a solid 7 out of 10. I really think that this is something you should be watching. I love the fact that the majority of the cast, they are what they represent. So a lot of times in Hollywood, you would find that cis people are being casted to play roles of people in the community. You'd find that a cis person, a cis man would be cast to play a transgendered woman, as if there aren't any transgendered women actresses. So I like that the cast is actually representing what they are representing in the story. The cast really represents the hardships, it represents the acceptance, it represents the love, it represents every sort of way how you had to, in order to survive, sometimes you'd had to prostitute yourself. In order to survive, you'd have to have a sugar daddy to take care of you. It really it explores a whole lot of themes, guys. I really don't know how else to explain it, but it is something that you should be watching. I think it will educate you in a lot of things. I like getting to know more about things that I don't know about, especially in the community. I like to be in the know. The Pose series also educated me a lot. There's a lot of things that I didn't know, especially about ballroom culture and voguing and a whole lot of things that we have popularized and that we love in the culture that they had made popular and they had introduced basically to the culture, much like how Black culture is the cornerstone of good things. So yes, guys, that is basically my beauty in the binge. That is basically my analysis of Pose, and I think you should watch it. You should definitely watch it. And I would like to know what you guys think of Pose. If you have watched it, what do you think about it? And if you know any other LGBTQ plus community friendly TV shows or movies, you can definitely plug them in the comments, because I would love to watch more. There's something that I'm very interested in watching, which is on HBO, called, I think it's called Legendary, where it is kind of like 2021 ballroom on TV, where they actually vogue and they have it's a competition show and they compete. So that's definitely something I want to try out. So I am open to any suggestions. Please comment and tell me what you think about Pose. And that's basically my beauty and the binge, guys. This is my final look. I'm doing a glossy eye glossy. It's giving me Pose theme, you know, that poster. It's probably gonna be my thumbnail, and it's giving me very much Angel loved smoky, she loves glossy, she just loves elegance. And that's my look, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If you like this video, please don't forget to like this video and just comment and tell me what else I could be watching that is friendly for the LGBTQIA plus community. Until next time, guys, ciao.